Howdy, howdy. Good morning. Good morning. It's almost bang on time for Habitat Gardening question and answer, with today's topic being the trees that you can select, that you can choose, that will form hollows, and hollows that are suitable for wildlife. Now, good morning. Uh, this is a live stream. This is question and answer. The whole reason for doing this show in the way that I do it is so that you do join in, ask questions, give your comments, and perhaps tell me your experiences. So, as we tick over to 9:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time, I actually have a bit of a script to guide me through today. So I will be referring to that and watching for your questions or comments. And as you know, I do love the questions and comments because um, well, it provokes conversation. So, welcome to the Habitat Gardening question and answer Saturday morning live stream, coming to you from the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people. That's Melbourne, Australia, or otherwise known as NAM. Focus of today's show is one of the best things that you can do in terms of a legacy gift for wildlife is to plant trees that will form hollows. Now, in Australia, we don't have woodpeckers like the Northern Hemisphere does, and in fact, right down into um, Southeast Asia. Now, woodpeckers produce hollows artificially, but here, hollows are a very slow cooking, slow cooked delight, and they're formed by a number of natural processes. Just age of the trees, fungal attack, um, fire, storms, and what you plant now in your gardens, and this extends also for street trees and any kind of public spaces. Uh, the choices that you make and what you plant is incredibly important for birds that are dependent on hollows for nesting, and then microbats and some of the uh, mammals and marsupials in Australia. So I'm going to start with some of the plants that will form hollows more rapidly than some others, and rapid hollow formation is is very relative, but also those cavities will be small. Then I'm going to go through some of the plants that are suitable for different zones, talking about Melbourne and southeast temperate Australia, Sydney, Queensland, southeast Queensland, and then go through some of the other zones like Western Australia and the arid and the alpine and tropical zones. We'll also be talking about some of the choices that you should be making if you have to consider power lines, um, and giving some commentary about the setback distances from either buildings or boundaries on properties. Um, and we'll have a bit of comment about planning design, nest boxes, safety, compliance. So it may be a bit of well, we'll probably easily do the hour, but uh, please do join in, and feel free at any time to drop a comment uh, or a question, and we will deal with them like that. So let's just do a little brief conversation about how hollows are formed in trees. Uh, Bearing in mind, because I'm talking about Australia, I'm basically talking about Australian native trees. Um, but if you can take on board the the basic themes about hollows. Now, hollows form slowly in Australia because we do not have woodpeckers or other animals that are really excavating into tree trunks or into tree branches. Uh, while we do have birds, particularly that are capable of expanding hollows that have already started, cockatoos, I mean, lorikeets are always maintaining a hollow in one of the street trees nearby here, but they don't actually start them. They don't. Uh, they don't. They don't find an undamaged tree limb or tree trunk and start excavating in the way that woodpeckers do in the northern hemisphere and in Southeast Asia. So the age of the tree, damage or injury, and fungi, and the damage might be from weather, from storms. That is how hollows start. And hollows begin because you get a wound, some damage, and then uh, the tree will naturally start to decay with they can be accelerated by moisture getting in, but it's then fungi or other agents, wood chewing insects, etc., making a uh, making a cavity, and then over time that entrance can be widened. Now, we're talking about long timelines here. And that's why I mentioned in the introduction that this is a legacy project for you. If you want to plant trees that will provide hollows, you need to be thinking in terms of decades and centuries. Now, I know not everybody will be happy to wait that long, so there are artificial ways to provide hollows, and I will cover that briefly. And of course, we've done that many times over the life of the bird emergency and habitat gardening, more specifically over the last few years. So um, you can go back into the back catalogue. I mentioned too, I have documentation for all of this that will be available later on, and I've got a few other bits of news that we'll cover afterwards. But the key takeaway about timelines is that we are thinking in decades for small cavities and for big nesting chambers for larger birds and mammals and reptiles, whatever else is using a hollow. We're talking a century or centuries. And by extension, we need to protect old trees. This is why we need to protect old trees. One of the reasons is that only old trees will produce hollows in a timely manner, and many of them are already providing hollows. And if we remove those trees, we cannot replace them quickly. So, uh, So, what birds and animals use what kind of hollows? Here's uh, uh, a rough guide to that. Small hollows, um, small hollows, which I'm categorizing as say 3 to 6 centimeters, 30 to 60 millimeters. Microbats, small parrots, pardalotes, and even uh, owlet nightjars and some of the very small possums, gliders, okay, will use a hollow that small. Then we have what I will define as a medium hollow, which will be 6 to 10 millimeters at the entrance. Uh, Rosellas and lorikeets, so medium-sized parrots, ringtail possums, sugar gliders, uh, and some of the kingfishers, kookaburras, will also be using those. And then large ones, large hollows with an entrance greater than 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters, cockatoos, so the larger owls, brush-tailed possums, um, they need they need those. So um, also the size of the entrance is one of the factors that are important. There's also the size of the chamber, um, but I think I don't want to dwell too much on that because I've talked about that over the years when we've been talking about nest boxes. Um, so, what are some of the ways that you can accelerate uh, the development of hollows in an ethical fashion? Um, where branches have broken off, leave the stubs. Uh, leave if you notice that you have some hollows developing, leave them. Don't clean them up. Um, after fire and storm damage, intervene when you see the crews come in to do a cleanup. Encourage them to think about leaving hollows. Now, you may end up having heated discussions with people about danger, but at least plant that seed in their minds, and hopefully, hopefully that will leave at least some uh, damage in standing trees. Um, Also, where it's legal, depending on the species and depending on your council area and where the tree is located, you may be able to encourage an arborist to use a chainsaw uh, to cut artificial hollows into tree trunks or branches. Um, but remember, there are guidelines or legislation about setbacks from boundaries for trees, um, the keeping power lines and other services clear, and that uh, some councils have specific rules about specific trees, and we can't cover all of those. Um, okay, how have I chosen the plants, the trees we're going to talk about now? Uh, the primary uh, method is the relative speed that they will form hollows. So, uh, when we're talking about eucalyptus, gums and boxes tend to be quicker, and some of the paperbarks, the melaleucas, will provide small cavities earlier. And the secondary manner of selection I've used, or the secondary criteria, is that they're that they're available in nurseries. Um, so if I'm talking about these trees, that you are likely to be able to find them in a nursery in your area. And also talking about species that do not require really specific soil types or really specific or difficult to provide um, conditions in cultivation. Okay, let's get straight into it. Melbourne and temperate southeast Australia, basically all of Victoria. Here's a short list for 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 that. Now, these the conditions that are experienced in this zone, in this geographic region, the soils are mixed. They're mostly going to be clays or loams or a mixture of the two. Uh, the winters can be cold, can be cool, and some of these areas will be affected by frost. Um, if you are looking for a tree and you need to consider that you have overhead power lines or uh, other services like your internet coming in, you need to be using small paper barks or dwarf eucalypts. And here is a list of what have I got here? 20, I believe. Okay. 20 trees selected from availability and to be adaptable. And of course, I'm seeing people popping in. Actually, let me have a look. Where have we got people? Oh, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Greetings. Please uh, jump into the conversation. Tell me if you're new. Tell me where you are watching from, what part of the world, what part of the country, maybe what part of the world. And if you're a gardener, if you're thinking about developing a garden, and if you're already involved in providing habitat as part of your gardening for wildlife. So jump in at any point. I'm going to now leap into my 20 trees that I recommend for Melbourne, Victoria, and temperate southeast Australia. Eucalyptus malleodora, the yellow box, a plant that crops up often in these conversations. Um, it is a keystone species for woodland. So all of those woodland honeyeaters and parrots find it valuable. It's a fantastic nectar provider, but it will also start to provide cavities early. And again, we're talking decades. We're talking decades before these things start. And one tree can provide several to many cavities. Um, just for um, if you're interested in the kind of setback um, for these trees in an urban setting, it's 10 to 12 meters from boundaries or from buildings. Eucalyptus leucoxylon, the yellow gum. So we've had the yellow box and the yellow gum. Eucalyptus leucoxylon, many uh, cultivars, selections of Eucalyptus leucoxylon are available. It's an ideal plant in the urban environment. It does shed limbs, which means when it shed limbs, it provides a wound site and there are many forms that are suitable for street trees uh, in the 8 to 10 meter height range, and they're ideal, these dwarf forms, for consideration planting under power lines. And because they are dwarf forms, they don't have that larger setback distance. Eucalyptus, and bearing in mind too, many of these eucalyptus are now called corymbias. I'm just thinking, I think I've got them all right. I think these are all eucalyptus. Uh, Second guessing myself there. Eucalyptus microcarpa, or the grey box. Uh, Suitable because it will handle clays, and uh, it's adaptable for high rainfall areas as well. But specifically, if you have an area where clay has been brought in as a fill in your suburb, Eucalyptus microcarpa, the grey box, will be reliable, uh, and the setback for this is 10 to 12 meters. Next, Eucalyptus polyanthemus, or polyanthemus, the red box. This is a more compact plant or tree, um, often multi-stemmed, really handsome looking bark, um, and at branch and stem unions, cavities can start quite early. Um, they also will boughs will break in strong winds regularly, so they're a really good plant for shelter belt usage for quick growth, but they're also very good for providing hollows early on. But again, remember, we're talking decades, several decades, for usable hollows. 6 to 8 meter setbacks for this. Eucalyptus viminalis, the manna gum, classic tree for hollows. Does like high rainfall areas, does not like being uh, in a situation where it will dry out. It's ideal for low down in a gully, or a uh, uh, I was going to say a hollow, but not a hollow, but any sort of gully or low lying areas down the bottoms of hills. 15 to 20 meters setback for Eucalyptus viminalis. Again, it's one that does shed branches, so that's the reason for that setback distance. The river red gum, Eucalyptus cameldulensis, again, will will drop limbs, and will drop limbs uh, when there is a rapid temperature change. So if there's if you've had a period of hot weather, and then you get a really rapid, severe cool change come in, river red gums will often drop limbs. Now, that's good if you're not underneath them, because that provides an opportunity for a hollow to develop. Uh, Ideal on floodplains. There's a setback of 15 metres or more for that. Of course, a fantastic plant in the rural settings, uh, floodplains particularly. Um, I'm just having a look at the time. I think I'll probably only go through two of the zones, because it is going to take me a bit longer. Oh, hello, Charlie. Uh, Sorry, Charlie, I was looking at a different screen. Are all these trees making hollows because they're widow makers? Well, yes, uh, yes, quite possibly. Um, but that's why we are including these setback distances. Um, when you when you're selecting any plant or tree uh, in horticulture and in an area where people are going to be possibly underneath them, these are some of the things you need to consider. So, any of these trees that I mention have prolific limb drop. For instance, Eucalyptus viminalis and Eucalyptus camaldulensis. I wouldn't be putting them. Uh, I wouldn't be considering them as shade trees for your patio or for your carport or for your um, barbecue area because it's quite likely that they will drop a limb. Uh, but uh, if you have a backyard that is quite spacious, they might be a very good tree to put down in your back corner uh, and just allow them to do their thing. Um, and the risk then is that maybe they will drop a limb on a fence. But I mean, these are the things we need to think about now because if we're trying to remove every risk from the urban and semi-urban environment, well, we're not going to have. Um, we are going to be 100% reliant on artificial cavities, and I think as I cannot remember how many million of those we need to maintain the hollow-dependent species in Australia, but there just is not there's no budget, no imaginable budget to do that. So if we're trying to remove all risk from species that shed limbs in the urban setting, then we are basically saying we are happy to lose hollow dependent wildlife from urban settings and semi urban, and then urban rural settings. So, and for me, just not, I just can't countenance that. I think going off on a tangent again, it's that age old question that I ask in the bird emergency. Why do we protect any species? And depending on the answer that people give me, if you protect one, why don't you protect the next one? Um, so there we are. Where are we up to now? Now the candlebark, Eucalyptus rubida or rubida. Uh, now this the candlebark will drop limbs, but what it does rather than drop them flush with the trunk, it will break them off and leave a stem. So the stem offers the opportunity for uh, invasion by fungus or wood eating insects. So that gives the opportunity for r- more rapid um, formation of hollows. The candlebark uh, is one of those eucalypts that you would select in a site that is cool, and so that means shaded, uh, shaded, maybe on the wrong side of a hill, the wrong side of a series of buildings, and it has a setback distance of between 12 and 15 metres, so minimum of 12 metres. Um, where are we up to? Eucalyptus ovata, the swamp gum, um, is a fast growing plant where fast growing tree on river flats and floodplains where it will be regularly inundated. Ah, Charlie, Uh, cool. Charlie asked so he knew where to plant. I think it's so important we plant for hollows. We have so many special birds that rely on them. The more timid birds are losing out due to competition and lack of hollows. It's really sad. Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the critical issues for wildlife in not only in Australia but worldwide. And it's why I guess I come back to it over and over again and uh, try and broach the issue in a different way every time I bring it up, and that's why I have the setback distances as part of the conversation, so that you can uh, be aware of if you have a uh, a boundary or a building, and you can extend that to being a utility area or a usage area, your carport, your driveway. Uh, Use those distances as a guide. So for the swamp gum, for Eucalyptus ovata, which is where we're up to, um, that's 12 to 15 meters. That's a pretty standard measure for trees, 12 to 15 meters. Uh, uh, Eucalyptus manifera, the brittle or the scribbly gum. Now, you might know the scribbly gum. That's the one that has the interesting lines that develop on the trunks. And when the the latest season bark sheath shears off, um, you get those little lines left by the caterpillars that have been eating the outer layer of um, bark material or of trunk material, um, and leaving those designs. Uh, Scribbly gums will often have several hollows per tree. Uh, Ideal. I mean, it's a favoured hollow species in Canberra and the sort of highlands region in um, uh, eastern New South Wales. Ideal for that. Setback for the Eucalyptus manifera, 8 to 10 metres. Um, Next, I can probably skip through some of these. I mean, that's nearly 10. Yeah. I might skip so many of these I've spoken about in earlier uh, in earlier ones. I have the I have the handout for this already produced, so I'll pop that up on Substack and buy me a coffee, and uh, on Patreon later today. Um, I think what I really want to do is talk a little bit more about. And I've got the list. I've got this list, and it's massive, right? I want to talk about some of the design considerations that um, that can accelerate, or that can lead to the acceleration of hollow availability. And the key with this is that this will depend on the size of your garden or your property, or if you're doing shelter belts or anything like that. These are the key things to consider. If hollow formation is one of those criteria that you are using to select trees. And the first thing is diversity. So if you're doing a shelter belt, or if you're planting a mixed bed in a garden, and Charlie, I know your garden is larger, I'm assuming, than I said I know, didn't I? But I'm assuming, because of where you are, that you have more space than most people with a housing block in suburban Melbourne or suburban Sydney. So you can probably take this on a bit easier than many other people, and you may plant with different ideas about what the mature tree will look like, because you can probably plant them at a distance apart where they can really fully develop their crown and spread. Whereas a lot of people in more suburban settings might uh, plant their trees much closer. And that means, of course, you get thinner and potentially weaker trunks. And as a uh, extension of that, you may get weaker boughs. And so you may get um, more bough drop, or you may get bough drop in weaker or less powerful winds. All things you have to consider. But what I'm getting to is, if you have the space, plant as many of the suitable tree species as you can. That means you are less likely to lose all of them in a fire, or to have all of them damaged in a uh, drought, or if there is some event that perhaps somebody dumps some uh, organic compound somewhere, you're less likely to lose everything at once, right? So this is insurance. Diversity gives you insurance of survival, and also uh, a likelihood that you will get hollows, and that you will satisfy the needs of your local wildlife by planting as many suitable species as you can, based on all the limiting factors: your block size, your aspect, um, how you want to use the site, all those things. And a diversity of species will also produce, when hollows are formed, you will get a diversity of hollow types and sizes. Um, in general, in general, stem spacings, distance between trees when you are planting out large trees, is at least 12 metres. And so the 12 to 15 metre setback is also the kind of distance that you need to be using as the distance between trunk to trunk. Uh, smaller trees, um, 6 to 10 metres, and for melaleucas and large callistemons, sort of 3 to 5 metres. And if you are in a situation where you can plant in a shelter belt, or uh, dense garden bed, uh, make sure you stagger them. Don't plant in neat lines. Um, Looks terrible, and it's not terribly functional. Um, the other the other thing to bear in mind when you are planting, uh, preserve what's there if you can. If you have old stumps and logs on the ground, or um, just try and leave things there, and also dig up and prepare only the area you need to put your new plant in the ground, unless you are doing lines of shelter belts along fence lines, don't rip everything. Uh, don't cultivate everything, because in the uh, in the long run, that actually can increase compaction, especially if you're going to have um, livestock moving in around it as well. Um, but yeah, try and keep stubs, broken off branches. Try and keep them if possible. Okay, let's talk about artificial hollows. Um, yeah, let's talk about artificial hollows, which basically are nest boxes. Do you want me to do that? Uh, the reason they're important is that while we're losing um, every day, we're losing standing trees every day. Um, Property development, urban sprawl, uh, clearing for safety. Sometimes there's good reasons to remove trees. But even if every tree that is removed is replaced, we are talking at least decades and probably centuries before hollows uh, uh, are available for wildlife. So, while we're waiting for natural hollow development, I've really got that word on my brain today. Uh, Artificial hollows, nest boxes are a very good option, especially for small birds, microbats, and possums. Now, if you want to build them yourself, you can. If you want to purchase them, you can. Uh, there are, as you know, I've been a great spruiker of habitat innovation and their nest boxes, because they're target species specific. They're hard wearing. They've actually been tested. There's research to back up uh, their effectiveness, um, long lasting. The materials are non toxic, all that kind of stuff. But they are expensive. So if you want to create your own, you can. Materials you need to be using are exterior grade or marine plywood, 12 to 18 millimeters thick, or durable hardwoods. Now, the durable hardwood uh, will vary depending on um, where you are located. But as a rough guide, you want to be using a hardwood that will be suitable for use as a in ground. So that means any timbers that are recommended for like fence posts and those kind of uh, those kind of uses, or as the uprights as supports for patios and verandas. Those are the timbers that you need to be considering. Uh, they should have an overhanging roof over the entrance. Uh, they should have a sloped lid. They should have drainage holes in the bottom. There should be vent slots uh, towards the top of the sides, because you need to reduce humidity. But at the same time, you do not want wind blowing through. You're trying to maintain a temperature, an acceptable temperature within the hollow, but you also want the ability for moisture to escape from the hollow, and you will get moisture because you have living, breathing creatures within the hollow, or hopefully you will have, and they're may well be defecation and missed when birds are regurgitating meals, they might miss the mouth of the chick. So all those things are bringing moisture into the hollow, and you do want that moisture to be able to escape in a gaseous form and not begin uh, begin rotting and or allowing places for mold and mildew um, to begin growing. Yeah, there are a number of designs that are available, and perhaps I can provide some of those at a later date. Yeah, perhaps. Okay, when you are putting them together, please use galvanized or stainless steel screws or bolts. Uh, when you are putting the lid on, which of course will be sloped, make sure it's hinged, or you have some other method to remove it, but that it's also secure. So a hinged lid with a latch is the best option. So you can clean them. Also, when they're being hung, you need to be able to remove them, get them down, uh, so you can move them if they're not being used, and that you can uh, get them down and clean them. Uh, you want the interior to be roughened up, or if you are using uh, a smoothly milled timber, you need to be adding grooves or some kind of ladder so that the occupants can climb from the base to the outlet. Uh, don't put perches on the front of your nest boxes because hollow dependent species don't need them, but pest species will find them extremely useful, and they will dominate uh, uh, those nest boxes if you do put perches on them. So just don't. You do need to put some bedding material in your artificial boxes for parrots and possums. 5 to 10 centimeters of wood shavings, not really fine sawdust, and uh, when we're talking about materials, you do not want to be using treated pine. They have to be non-toxic. Okay, so be careful about the selection of wood shavings. You can also use uh, some small wood chips, especially things like yucca mulch as well. If you if you're using any of those commercial products, though, be 100% sure that they are non-toxic and they haven't uh, in, included somehow like pine shavings or something like that that may have been treated. Um, and this is something I haven't ever needed to use, but um, I have seen the situation where if you're using a fairly soft wood as your main material and you're targeting small and medium parrots or perhaps smaller gliders or a medium possum, sometimes you'll find cockatoos or large possums will chew a small hole out to to suit a bigger occupant. So if your target species is a smaller bird and you do or animal and you do not want a ringtail possum, I beg your pardon, a brush-tail possum or a cockatoo to be displacing, say, lorikeets, swift parrots, um, owlet nightjars, whatever. Maybe you've got a small kingfishers or something. Um, you can use a chew plate around the uh, entrance hole, and you can do that on the inside and the outside, but outside first, and you can fold it in to stop them having access um, to chew the any of the interior space. Um, okay, I've got a little bit of a small cheat sheet or a small rundown of the appropriate sizes um, for different purposes. Um, and I'll encourage you again. If you've got questions or comments, just pop them in. I am trying to keep an eye out for them. I would really like to know if anyone's got any hollows, artificial hollows in their garden, or if they have any natural hollows in their garden, or maybe in the streets around you, and think about how big they are and what is using them, and is there much competition for them? Uh, I know something um, that I have been thinking a lot about is how the smaller parrots are getting dominated by the lorikeets, and so I'm thinking of how to preference things like the Neophema parrots and the Sophotis parrots. Charlie says, my friend has got a real problem with European bees taking over hollows. Any idea how to deal with this? Absolutely. Make sure uh, uh, there are two things I would suggest. I mentioned that you want uh, the boxes to have a hinge lid or a base that you can remove so that you can get undesirables out and clean them. Uh, that's the first thing. They also so not only must you be able to remove the bottom or the top, you also need to be able to bring the box down. But the other thing I would suggest is if you are getting European honeybees invading and you tip them out and remove them, that swarm still goes to find somewhere else. So get some beehives. So if you've got a swarm of a colony of honeybees, European honeybees invading your hollow, that means they're around, and that's going to keep happening. So perhaps do them a favor and remove their invasive tendency by providing a hive. And you can, if it happens again, provide another one. Uh, you can build your own hives too. So they're the only solutions I know. Get them out of the hollow that you have a target species for, and provide them with somewhere else to go. Uh, Charlie again has. I have a pipe that pardalotes use to nest. I have two nest boxes. One has rosellas, and other has a brush tail. All right, good. Well, we're about to talk about the sizing cheat sheet and the general sizes and dimensions for different target species. Microbats. You want a thin bat box. You may have seen them. They're thin, but they're a bit tall. Uh, with a 20 millimeter slit, generally at the bottom. Um, yeah, great, Charlie. Yeah, I think they're the only solutions I have other than things like spraying the bees. But if there's bees around and you kill uh, one colony, one swarm, they just get replaced by another one. So if there are lots of honeybees turning up, uh, provide them with a hive or two, and that way you'll get some honey, and you'll be able to keep the target um, hollows empty. Oh, the other thing too is, uh, sorry, there is a third solution too, Charlie. Um, only have the if you have a target species for a particular box, only hang the box when that species is coming into nesting season. That way, at all other times, non-target species don't have the opportunity to use it, to colonize it, to mess it up, all those things. And um, the um, and then monitor it as soon uh, if you see that a non-target species is showing some interest. Just first thing, just take it down. Uh, and you can, if you design it this way and build it this way, you can actually put a a swinging cover or something over the hole so that you can leave it in situ, and then you only open the hole, the entrance hole, at a time where you know your target species is around and displaying, pairing up behavior. I know that requires a lot of observation and being familiar with what's going on around you, but hey, uh, I I reckon if you're putting up, nest boxes, that's actually a bit of a requirement that I think you have a responsibility to ensure that pest species are not using them. Um, hmm, there we are. So where was I? Microbats. So yeah, so a thin box with a 20 millimeter entrance. Uh, the internal crevice needs to be about 30 to 50 centimeters tall, and it does need to have a roughed up interior because the bats will enter and they'll go up and they'll hang uh, against the wall. Uh, there we are. So Charlie says one of the birds was an owlet nightjar and was its permanent home. Yeah. So um, now owlet nightjars are a resident species, so they're always going to be around. Um, just another tip too is, for instance, if you've got an owlet nightjar that needs somewhere to hang out, it's not only going to use one hollow; it's going to use several, because perhaps a snake discovered it once and it got away, or a goanna, or maybe while it was out hunting one night, maybe a possum moved in. So you need to give them options, uh, and they'll be quite grateful for that. Uh, Look, again, I'm not going to go over all of these sizes. I'll just give you an indication that all of these different critters, creatures, birds require different internal dimensions and different entrance holes sizes. So microbats, while they may use, if they have no other options, your small parrot or your rosella nest box, it's not their preferred type. So uh, So I've mentioned microbats. Small parrots and pardalotes require a smaller hole and a smaller volume internally and different depths than rosellas and lorikeets do. And kookaburras will use the same uh, artificial box that rosellas and lorikeets will use. But galahs and corellas will use a bigger one than the rosellas and lorikeets and kookaburras, but smaller than the larger cockatoos. Uh, and barn owls, other owls, larger, powerful owls, um, uh, barking owls, they will use larger ones again, and your black cockies and your sulphur crested cockatoos, um, larger still. And then if you know we don't need, we're not providing nest boxes for palm cockatoos in the suburbs, but if you were involved in uh, uh, providing hollows for anything much larger, you would be looking at a depth of at least 60 centimeters, 600 mil. Um, and for ringtail possums and sugar gliders, you have a smaller hole and depth required than for brushtail possums. Um, yeah. Now, that's not covering all of the um species that will might be using hollows, but it's a good guide. I will produce um uh I'll produce a more species specific list, but I think this is a good place to start. How do you Where do you put them? How do you orient them? I think we'll just leave that um, for the handout. Uh, but here's a couple of tips. In Australia, in the temperate zone, in the southeast, you want to be facing east or southeast, so they get morning sun, they warm up uh, quicker, and they avoid the really hot afternoon sun. Uh, if you know the location what you want to use is uh, particularly hot, perhaps think about rigging up some method of shading the box from sort of uh, early afternoon. So, um, but the best thing to do is to uh, just select a spot will with a east to southeast aspect where it will get morning sun and won't get the really hot afternoon sun. So you don't want them facing west, and you don't want them facing, as a rule, north. Um, you can break that rule, of course, if you do have lots of shelter around. So if you're in a woodland or a forested area, and you know the spot that you select doesn't get the hot afternoon sun, and wind is another one too. If you don't want it to be barraged by wind, uh, yeah. Now, mounting, use two straps or bolts so that the box does not twist. One of the great problems with nesting box hanging is people putting one one screw or putting a hook on top and then ha- hooking them onto one screw, and then in the wind they sway. That's not going to get used, um, except maybe by some miners or some starlings or something. So do make sure that they are securely fixed, but that you can. take them off. Also, remember that you want to protect the tree that you are mounting the box to, and you also want to allow the tree to grow. So um, that's why they should be removable, and you can take them off. Uh, yeah, take them off when, uh, or provide. You can provide something, padding or uh, something that allows the tree to grow if you are not having the box being able to be removed. Make sure the tree can grow while the box is securely mounted to it. Otherwise, you'll damage the tree and eventually that branch will fall down and you may damage the box which you have spent time either purchasing or making. Also, if you have if you have the opportunity to put numerous artificial hollows nest boxes out there, remember variety is the spice of life. So use varied heights and slightly different aspects. Maybe tilt some, have some upright, have some slightly off kilter, and don't have them too close together. Nesting birds have territories, they want space. Um, so at least 20 to 30 meters apart, I would recommend for things like um, rosellas and lorikeets. And, um, many of these birds are not territorial apart from the immediate area around their nesting site. In fact, a lot of them are quite social birds, but you still don't want them to be right on top of each other when they are breeding. Now I've mentioned a number of times you want to keep predators. You want to be able to keep predators out. So that's when you maybe will be thinking about fitting a trunk collar on the tree that you are hanging the box on, so that a cat or or it may even be possums cannot and goannas cannot climb that tree from the ground to get up into the nest boxes. Um, or you may be fitting uh, a, a cone like, like the inverse of the collar that you put around a dog when it's been to the vet. You can use the inverse principle to stop any other animal getting up and following a branch and getting into the nest box. So I hope you follow. You have the big frill, plastic or tin or something frill that you would put on your cat or dog to stop them licking a wound or something once they've been to the vet. Well, if you turn it around the other way so that it's flaring down, you can put that on either the bottom of your nest box or on around a trunk or a bough that will stop access for a pest or a predator getting up into the nest box. No, 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 no. Now, what else have we got here? Of course, pest species, common miners, starlings, honeybees, as you mentioned before, Charlie. Um, the best way to deal with them, the correct hole size, the correct chamber size, no perches, um, remove nesting materials the minute uh, that you see invasive species getting in there. so that they don't get the opportunity to uh, lay eggs. And you will also need to check that your local bylaws allow you to remove um, a nest of an invasive species. In most cases, you can, but there are some unusual local laws. So be aware of your own local laws and actually check out if they have any restrictions on nest boxes. Um, I'm not aware of any, but I'm sure there are some, and particularly perhaps there may be some unusual clauses in insurance policies. Who knows? Um, if bees move in, call a beekeeper, or yeah, yeah, or remove the um, uh, take. I mean, you want to you've got to make sure you're not going to get stung. So don't use poisons, and you need to give the. If you call a beekeeper, what's the beekeeper going to do? He's going to take that colony and use it and put it in his own hive or in their own hive. Uh, so there's my suggestion. Make sure you have somewhere for bees to go. Um, ants are another problem for many boxes. So um, there are um, you can put insect safe barriers on straps and brackets. Check your local hardware for that. Um, personally, I've never had ants to be a problem, but I imagine in some parts of the country uh, that uh, might be there. Um, monitoring is important. Um, inspect in late winter. Breeding for most target species kicks off in late winter and early spring. Um, uh, do yourself and everyone else a favor and make notes of what uses your hollows. Use iNaturalist, use eBird, um, perhaps BirdLife Australia's eBird app. Sorry, Bird Data app, so that the information that you have about your location can be of some use to the scientific and naturalist community. Um, and if you have boxes that don't get used, move them to other places, change the aspect, uh, perhaps change the species that it's hung in, all kinds of things. Just variety is the spice of life. Um, what else? I guess be mindful of hanging nest boxes on buildings, because if that nest box, uh, you're more likely to have possums using it, and then if you do try and get the possum out of it, it's more likely to get into your roof space. So just be careful about that. Uh, try and keep your nest boxes, your artificial hollows, away from uh, buildings and roof cavities. Um, let's see. What are some of the common problems with or mistakes that people make using artificial hollows? One, they use an entrance hole that is much too big for the target species that they're after. For instance, A lot of native species only require a small hole, and a hole that is smaller than a miner or a starling will use. So, uh, so we'll make more of that information available in a handout and in a blog post. Um, don't make the biggest mistake, the easiest mistake to make is that the box will be west facing, and get too hot. The other thing is to put it facing the prevailing winds, which makes it not a conducive place for the birds to move into. Um, oh wow, there's been a earthquake in Queensland this morning. Um, the other common problem is there's two others. I've mentioned them both too, but you need to have a drain. The box needs to be able to drain, and it needs to be well ventilated. So you'll end up with a damp or moldy uh, internal cavity, which no bird or other animal is going to want to be using, and that they are fixed at a single point, which means that they move around, blow around, and are not inviting for your target species. Um, let's see. So that's pretty much where I wanted to end up today, and we've got there. Any other questions or comments? This afternoon, I will make the handout available. There's a lot of them will be available today. Um, so if you are, um, if you have been a supporter on Buy Me a Coffee, you will get an email about it. Otherwise, you will have to look for a post on Blue Sky, Twitter, um, YouTube, or Facebook, or Patreon, or um, yeah, I'll probably do one on the website as well. I don't know, but when things are when they're available, uh, I will let you all know. Um, so remember that the best time to plant a hollow bearing tree is last century. The next best time is today. So, um, uh, and remember that retention is better than trying to provide something new. Um, so I think that's the best information I can give. Um, does anyone have another question or a comment? Thanks, Charlie, for popping those in today. I think I've covered most things. You just will need the printout. I promise I'll get better at getting organised um, before Saturday, so that I can just give you a easy link and go for it. But yeah, I have. Um, I probably should explain what's been bogging me down. I've been putting my lists into Chat GPT and also the Google models to try and format them. And everything was going really well until ChatGPT 5 came out. And then things started taking forever. And it took a lot of research to work out that I could actually set up my account to select a different model, because when I've used it for other options, for other things, it's been really, really quick. Then all of a sudden it was taking hours to do one little things, and it was simply that it was selecting a crappy model. Anyway, I've changed everything now that I am using faster models, and now I've got all these files downloaded, and I just need to check them all and pop the branding in and get them uploaded, which is what we'll do today. And yeah, we'll have Patreon, we'll have Buy Me a Coffee, we'll have I'll probably put them on as posts on Substack and the website, but I probably won't get all of those done, like updated and all the earlier documents on today. The other thing I have done, this is one of the things that was slowing me down. I I know I've been talking about the trivia, getting trivia organized. Well, I've been working on that, but uh, that slowed me well down. But I've now got hundreds and hundreds of trivia questions based on earlier episodes of the Bird Emergency, so that we can have um, participants in the community taking advantage of it, and then um, the ability to win prizes and whatnot, rather than just Johnny come late, Johnny's come latelys. I think that's the right one. Uh, it's the right way to say it. Anyway, that's it for today. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you found some of that information uh, useful. And Charlie, again, thank you for your input. And we look forward to next week being the first week where I'll be able to give you a link for the documentation to be available straight away. All right. All I'm Grant. I'm a horticulturist. I'm also a bird nerd. And this has been Habitat Gardening question and answer. Uh, check out the Bird Emergency at thebirdemergency.com/YouTube. That's where you can find everything that we've been doing in the past. Okay. Hooroo.